Acts of Beheading. There once was a ritual gathering of spirits, held on the night of the 10th full moon of the year. During the ceremony, they would gather on the shores of a lake and boast to one another of all the evil deeds they had performed during the year. The first spirit took great joy in telling of the unfathomably cruel ways she had killed some of the finest soldiers in the land. Over the year, she had transformed her shape into a lady of the night and called out to various men, then tore off every last piece of their body when they came to her bed. The soldiers, ashamed their skills could not save them, shed bitter tears as they died, and the spirit claimed they were the most delicious thing she had ever tasted. The next spirit regaled the others with a story of cunning and guile. One night, she threw a small boy into a bog. When his older sister came to rescue him, she too sank into the murk. These two were followed by their parents, then other siblings, then extended relatives, until finally every member of the village was sleeping at the bottom of the bog. When the spirit finished her story, she was so beside herself with glee that she did not even notice the saliva that dripped down her chin. Nervously, the smallest spirit in the group stepped forward to address the crowd.
"I am the most amazing of us all,"
cried the oft-ridiculed spirit at the top of her lungs.
"For it was I who thrust all living creatures into terror's deepest depths."
The other spirits, unable to contain their mirth, collapsed to the ground and rolled about, and their laughter did not cease until the horrifying monster the small spirit summoned from the demon world devoured each and every last one of them. Beastlord. Long, long ago in a faraway kingdom, there were 3 brothers. The eldest brother was a king who ruled over the entire nation. He was a most terrifying king, feared by all. Each day the king would select one of his subjects to execute as a sacrifice. This day he chopped off a mother's head and forced her family to watch. The head spun 3 times as it flew through the air before landing next to the head of her son, who the king had previously killed. Oh, the horror of it all! But the king merely watched the sight unfold before him and laughed in the most unsettling voice. One day the king contracted an illness most dire, one which caused his body to rot while he was still alive. But though diseased, the king would still drag his decaying flesh to the executions all the same. His retainers dared not defy their king, so they continued to kill day after day after day after day. In the end, the king rotted and died. His was a disgusting, foul, rotten death, but his retainers continued carrying out executions before the king's rotted corpse every day. Every day killing. Every day the rotted king, and the rotted retainers, and the rotted citizens, and the rotted you.
Fangs of the twins. We've been together since we were born. We're together when we eat, when we sleep, and when we dream. We share everything. We share the milk we get from Mommy, and the nice things Daddy says to us. But we're not together when we die. Daddy took me and cut off my head. And Mommy took my sister and cut off her head. But it's okay. Our blood got all mushed up into a big axe, so now we can be together forever.
Kusanagi. The shield left hanging on the wall was covered in dust. The blade left in its scabbard had rusted over. The techniques I hadn't used were forgotten. The body I was to train was left to grow soft. I had lost the will to practice discipline. I thought things would end without a single word said. I pretended not to see violence inflicted by others. I had given up, assuming things would never change. I believed there was no way to oppose such a great power. I sneered at hearts that tried to believe anyway. I laughed, thinking them brainless fools. Those were the thoughts I had taken refuge in. I had given up, believing nothing was possible in the end. I lamented the foolishness and ugliness of it all. My life had lost all meaning. I had lost sight of those who were precious to me. I could not believe in their kindness. I was unable to save them from the grief that tore at their hearts. I had forgotten the courage it takes to protect the smallest of joys. I believed my words would never reach you.
Labyrinths Song. It was a beast that lived in a cavern's deepest, most untouched depths. It had massive horns, a body like steel, breath of scorching fire. The peace-loving villagers hated this monstrous beast with the head of a bull and the body of a human. They feared it. And soon the beast came to be known as the Minotaur of the Labyrinth. Contrary to its terrifying appearance, the Minotaur was exceptionally kind. Not only did it refrain from harming other creatures, it took great care not to trample flowers beneath its oafish feet as it walked. Indeed, the reason it lived so deep inside the cavern was to help avoid frightening the villagers. One day a lost girl wandered into the beast's cavern. Frightened by the sight of it, she cried so hard she eventually passed out, which left the beast in quite the quandary. "I have no choice," the beast finally decided. "I must take the poor thing back to the village, for her mother and father will be terribly worried." 2 days after the girl vanished, her panicked parents found her sleeping soundly in front of their home. On the ground a short distance away was the body of the Minotaur. It had been impaled by several swords, and the blood scattered around it held an almost otherworldly quality. Yet there was no indication the beast had attacked the girl. In fact, it looked as though it had been trying to place as much distance between itself and her as possible, so as not to dirty her with its blood, almost as if it didn't want her to be afraid. And then, having curled up to make itself as small as possible, the monster died. Phoenix Sword. This is a story of a time long, long ago. There was once a beautiful bird with resplendent feathers that lived a quiet life deep in the forest. One day, a lost child wandered into the woods. He came from a place of famine and had been abandoned in the forest as a way to reduce the number of mouths to feed. Taking pity on the feeble, starving child, the beautiful bird plucked one of its own feathers and gave it to him. When he returned home, his family was overjoyed by the feather and permitted him to live with them once more. Hearing the child's story, one person after another descended on the forest to tell the bird how poor and unfortunate they were. Each time the bird would pluck a feather and give it away, pluck a feather and give it away, until it had no more to give and its once beautiful visage had become shabby beyond recognition. But the shabby bird had no regrets. One day, the original child appeared before the shabby bird, which was featherless and freezing in the cold. He had come seeking a bird with resplendent feathers that he might repay the creature's earlier kindness. Overjoyed, the shabby bird said to the child, "It is I you seek. If I might beg a favor, would you hold me to your chest and warm my freezing body?" Sparing a single glance at the shabby bird, the child called it a liar and cut it down with a large blade. He then roasted the bird, ate every last part, and set out anew to find the beautiful bird who had once saved his life.
Vile axe. The girl stares at the sight before her. Her father lies nearby, carved to pieces by countless blades. Her mother also lies dying, as well as her newborn baby brother. All had suffered terribly in their final moments, and the girl can do nothing but cry as she stares at the 3 soldiers who have murdered her only family. Years later,
the girl reappears, her visage made strong by her vow for revenge. The first soldier has grown so fat that the buttons on his uniform can barely contain his girth. The girl approaches him and claims to know an easy way to lose weight. On the pretext of an examination, she has him lie down on a bed before suddenly hacking off his arms and legs with an axe. The remaining lump of soldiers screams and attempts to wriggle away, but the girl pins him down and tells him he still has parts he can lose. Sometime later, the girl sits in front of the now rounded torso and smiles. "There we are," she whispers. "Look how nice and slim you are." The second soldier is a peerless Lothario. Each night, a new woman is invited to his manor to spend the night. The girl breaks into his home and kills the women at his side, then uses her axe to hack off his manhood as he trembles and begs for mercy. The third soldier has long since left the service and is now living a quiet life with his family in a remote village. After they have fallen asleep, the girl takes her axe and cleaves the support beams of the house, causing it to collapse. She then sets fire to the wreckage, creating a great bonfire that can be seen for miles in all directions. Suddenly, the soldier's son crawls from the wreckage, covered from head to toe in terrible burns. As his eyes fall on the girl who has murdered his family, she hands him her axe and flees into the dark of night, never to be seen again.
Iron will. I raised the cry of my birth, the sound of heated iron taking shape, a steel mallet striking my form. Born to deliver karmic justice, I enter the world under the careful watch of spark and flame that give light to the gloom. I am a blade born of a deafening roar. I am a weapon. I am iron will. I grant death. I transform the dread and screams of my foes to elation. I festoon my iron skin with their viscera. When I rob them of life, I am filled with dark joy. When I crush them beneath me, I find meaning in my birth. And I continue to kill, that I might share this delight with all. I kill and kill and kill and kill. I am a weapon. I am iron will. I am shattered. At battle and blood's end, my body is torn asunder by malice and hate. Today, I again engage the red dragon in battle, and magical forces meet leaping iron fangs to create a bloodstorm. My steel cursed, I sink into the slumbering black. I am a weapon. I am iron will. I dream. It is the dream of a small butterfly. In it, the butterfly is caught in a light rain, struggling against it with all its might. In the darkest of nights, I behold a dream that will never come true. I am a weapon. I am iron will.
Virtuous Treaty. My family has decided I am to be betrothed. I cannot resist, for I am but a tool. The man who became my husband possessed terribly cold eyes, but he too is a mere tool to be used so his family might prosper. He treats me well in his own way, but I was still unable to properly respond to his kindness. One night he calls me to his chambers. Still thinking him a kind man, I go to him willingly. As he greets me, I stare at the beautiful white katana he holds in his hand.
Fool's Lament. Memoir, June 12, 2003, approximately 1500 hours. A massive white humanoid, initially called the Weapon, but since renamed the Giant, falls from the sky above Tokyo's Shinjuku ward, inflicting tremendous damage. At the same time, a large red creature, henceforth referred to as the Dragon, appears and engages the Giant in combat, though both the nature of its attacks and their utility remain unclear. As the Self-Defense Force contemplates methods by which they might attack the target, the government establishes a Bureau of Emergency Countermeasures. Memoir, June 12, 2003, approximately 1600 hours. The Giant, which was locked in combat with the Dragon, suddenly begins to collapse for reasons unknown. The Dragon is then shot down by the 6th Division, 303rd Squadron of the Air Self-Defense Force. No official record exists of who issued the order to attack the Dragon. Work has begun to retrieve the remains of both the Giant and the Dragon, but no official verification has ever been made regarding which organization performed the retrieval. Memoir, December 2003. The first case of white chlorination syndrome is confirmed in Tokyo's Shinjuku ward. Memoir, July 2004. Humans continue to turn violent due to white chlorination syndrome, with fighting growing increasingly intense in infected regions. With the cause of the disease still unclear, the infected are isolated and violent riots suppressed by force. Main thoroughfares are sealed and rail transportation is halted, later leading to all of Shinjuku being sealed off. At this time, the prospect of asking the American military for non-official intervention is considered, but the government defers. Meanwhile, research begins on maso particles obtained from the Giant and the Dragon, as well as on countermeasures for white chlorination syndrome. This research ultimately leads to the founding of Project Gestalt a decade later.